All right, it's time for the concept plan, the final design. And so what that means, the overall idea we're going for is that now that you've gone through all of these different observation stages, you can stand at any place in your site and say, I know what happens here in the winter. I know what happens here in the morning. I know what happens here after a heavy rain. I know what happens here during a drought. I know what happens here when the place is really busy. And you said to, and then it's going to be totally different what happens here with all of those different things than what happens somewhere else, right? And so now that you've identified these microclimates plus the soils plus the water flow plus all the things, then it's like the story is getting clear to you, and we want then with the final design, the concept plan, to tell us where the story could go next. And so what's really important about this stage is to have it be big ideas first. A big mistake with the final design is to go ahead and put all of the plants just start in one corner of your site, and this plant's going to go here, and this plant's going to go here, and this plant's going to go here, because you'll see that it doesn't work. You have to fit it all together like a big puzzle piece first. Plant lists are great at this stage, but so many things can change that we want to keep it again very general, from patterns to details. And we know that you can put all the plants where exactly they go because of that plant system design assignment where you got practice spacing things out and fitting them into the landscape. So a question that kind of arises at this phase too is how far should you push it? How realistic are we trying to be, or how magical are we trying to be with what this site can be? And so that can mean a lot of different things, but I will show you two different concept maps for this park. One is solving the problems that are pretty obvious and easy to solve at this point after observing over time. Things like in the summertime, kids don't play on the play equipment because it's too hot to touch. Like a big tree can solve that. And then we can take it to the next level with what if the priorities shifted for this site? What if we are so into, as a town, wanting monarch butterfly habitat that we're willing to sacrifice a few parking spaces during the car show to be able to demonstrate something else too. And so I'll show a kind of concept plan as things are kind of now with no big trade-offs, and then another one that invites even more conversation of ooh, but we could do dot dot dot. And remember that the design, as well as all of these different graphics, are communication tools. And so if there's a conversation about well, does this part of the site do this or that or the other thing, that's why we have all of these different kinds of graphics to show all of these different kinds of observations, so that it informs the conversation about how the site can be into the future. All right, so this is the basics. These are the easy cells, just a few different changes. And you've already done two of these designs, the zone 1 and the planting plan. And these are just oh, there's some space on the fence. There's some space by the pine trees, that kind of thing. And then the next one, we take it to the next level. And we're and this could happen here, and this could happen here, and this could happen here. And this might take more money. It might take more time. It might take more community buy-in. But it's nice to always be inviting people to think about spaces as far as what else they could be. Okay, so another way to look at this is to break it into parts to make sure you haven't missed anything. And you can do the parts first before the concept plan, or back and forth. But basically, I've taken here the concept plan, done it up in black and white, copied it, and I'm drawing over it to make sure I haven't forgotten some important things about what has changed about the site. And here I've done the new zones. So what's different with new zones is that I've added a lot more places for people to interact, really beefed up that zone 1. And then with a lot of zone 5 areas, I've made that more habitat available. So it's the purpose of each has been more defined. And then there's some areas that are just used a little bit more but aren't zone 1, and that's what's helpful. For the plan for the water design, I'm just showing what all I've done here. Basically, I'm sinking more water with new plantings. There's a great potential gray water, potential wash basin, potential rain garden, potential cisterns. That all gets added in this water design. With soil and fertility, I've just put places where I know I'm going to be mulching, where there's going to be nitrogen fixers. With the garden beds, I think the best way to avoid kids getting into that is just to have any type of the community garden beds be just the composting area for that season and move on from there.
For the new plants, I just highlighted where new gardens were going in, whether that was pollinator plants, whether that was trees, whether there was annuals, and just so each of these give like a snapshot view of what is changing with the site.
Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I hope it was very useful to you to go through and make all these different observations of your site and lay them out and begin making your designs and having all sorts of tools that are easy to use to do so. I just want to reiterate some of the permaculture principles that I have found most useful in this work, which is start small. Like if you're just not sure, this overwhelming idea of what can I do, what can we do collectively with this piece of land to repair it, just start making these small observations and think about what different entities, whether it's humans or birds or insects, like what are the edges between them where we can encourage more interaction that's beneficial for everybody. And then always be receiving feedback. Because like I said, these concept plans will change and nature is always talking to the humans on the site, whether we are hearing it or not. And it's really important that we develop the skills in order to respond and be in full conversation about what our lives are doing, what our landscapes are doing, and how we can best live on the earth. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey.